Hello and welcome. My name is Johnny Blair and I'm one of the vicars at St Mary's and St John's in Walton-on-Thames. And I'm delighted to be interviewing Aaron Mozley. He's the man behind the Doorstep Loaf, but we'll be coming more onto that later. First of all, Aaron, please tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were brought up, your interests, your job. Just introduce yourself to us, please.
Hi there, everyone. My name's Aaron Mozley. As Johnny said, I am recently turned 40, or October, should I say, last year. I was 40, so actually nearing 41 now, unfortunately. I live with my partner, Lorna, and I have a son, Harrison, who's 3 years old. And we moved to Walton in May 2018. Previous to that, going back right to the start, I was born in a small village called Malden. Holds the claim to the longest village, or used to be the longest village in the UK. And that's in Bedfordshire. Beautiful little village. And in fact, I was born in my mum and dad's front room, where they still live this day. So about 44 years they've lived there. I grew up, as I say, in Malden. It's surrounded by a lovely village called Ampsall, which you may have heard of nowadays as quite a unique rugby team, a village rugby team. It's only got an inhabitants of 8,500 people, but they're currently in National Division 1, so the second tier of English rugby. And it's a tiny little village club that plays their rugby through a little forest that you have to walk through. So it's going to be quite interesting next year when Saracens come and play their rugby there. But that's the little claim to fame of the villages that surround where I was born. I went to school in Bedford, and after Bedford I went on to Loughborough University, where I studied industrial design and technology. Although I probably went less for the course and more for the sport was the big thing for me, which has always been a big passion of mine. I played rugby, football, golf, you name it, anything I could turn my hand to, I tended to pick up quite easily. But getting to Loughborough University, playing with the elite of the elite, you realise that you need a little bit to be a bit better than what I was in order to make it. So I certainly enjoyed my time at Loughborough, came out with an honours degree, and then left and got a job in, probably a dream job for most students. I went into the alcohol trade. I spent 7 years with Budweiser, then moved on to Heineken. But as I say, my passion had always been in sport, and in fact, I turned to do quite a lot of volunteering over the years, coaching cricket, coaching rugby, volunteered at London 2012 Olympics, and these all had knock-on effects. And I really enjoyed them that much that I decided it was a passion of mine that I really wanted to get into. So I ended up working in the events industry for a company called GL Events, and working on a number of worldwide events like Formula E in its inaugural season in 2014. So I helped to deliver that, travelling the world. Cheltenham Race Festival, Ascot Racecourse, you name it, I was involved in helping to deliver a lot of those events. And then brings me quite fast forward to my current role, which is working for a sports hospitality company called Keith Prowse. They're based out of Twickenham. We're owned by Compass Group, one of the largest hospitality catering company in the world. And as a result, I find myself furloughed because there is no need for these mass scale events that we deliver. And I'm fortunate to work on quite a few. I look after the Fever Tree tennis, the rugby at Twickenham, and also the cricket at Edgbaston. So all the hospitality that takes place there, I indirectly through event managers or directly deal with myself. So that brings us up to where we currently are today.
Brilliant, thank you. And before lockdown, you had a big event planned. Do you want to tell us about that?
So Lorna and I, in fact, the story with Lorna and I is that we met on a plane, very unusually. Anyone that knows me will know that I talk to absolutely anybody. But we met on a plane. She lived in Dubai at the time, working for Emirates Group, and we sat on a plane. I was travelling out east to do some work with Formula E. Lorna was travelling back home to her then home, which was Dubai. And it was quite a whirlwind relationship that we had. In fact, we obviously had Harrison when we lived in Teddington before moving to Walton. But we were due to get married on May the 28th. Obviously, at the very start.
March. March the 28th.
Sorry, March the 28th. Sorry, you are right, Johnny. Yes, obviously it was going to take place at St Mary's, so you know all the detail. But yeah, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we had to put a stop to that, which is a shame. And we're very much trying to get a date as quickly as possible, but mindful of the fact that the most important people to be there are our parents and relatives who are slightly older and probably more at risk. So whilst we're desperate to reschedule a date, we'll be mindful of all the advice we're given, and when people feel comfortable and confident that they can go out, I think we'll get another date down at St Mary's. Would be lovely.
Great. And you've been a regular at St Mary's at the 9:15 service for the last sort of 18 months and more. Do you want to tell us a bit about your faith journey recently?
Yeah, so as I say, we moved from Teddington, where we had Harrison, to Walton. Originally, it wasn't going to be Walton. We were looking at places like Barnes, places close to Teddington, where not Barnes, sorry, Ham. But the house sale fell through, and so we settled on a place in Walton, where we currently live. So that was May 2018, and when we got the summer out of the way of moving in September of 2018, I started coming to church, and I'd always, probably like a lot of people, as I've since realised through my faith journey since moving to Walton, but I went to Sunday school growing up. I've always gone to church with my family. Every year, it's a family event. We go at Christmas, we'll go at Easter, and it's always been part of our routine, and it's something I've felt very comfortable doing, but I never felt comfortable to go outside of that. And I lived in London since 2003, and actually when I moved to Walton, it was the first time I'd gone to a local church because I'd wanted to, because it was a decision I'd made. But I went because I wanted Harrison to experience what I'd had growing up at Sunday school. And that's, as I've realised since, the wrong reason to go with the intention of. And because it all became about making sure he was comfortable. And I never really met anyone. You know, throughout the first few months, it was quite tough. I was embarrassed when Harrison would be running around his boisterous self, very similar to myself, 110 miles an hour, quite loud, doesn't keep quiet. So it was a little bit embarrassing. And as a result, I was a bit shy and apprehensive to go and speak to people, which is what I'd normally do, hence how Lauren and I met on a plane. So, yeah, I think week in, week out, there was a few frustrations I'd had that I wasn't quite getting what I wanted from church. Yeah, Harrison loved it. I remember one incident particularly at Sunday school, and Harrison, it was an awful day. Harrison obviously had been up really early, he was crying lots, and I just couldn't get him to settle down, and they went to quiet time to read a story, and I just had to take him out of the room because he was just being so boisterous, and it was, I felt it'd be upsetting everybody. It was such a busy event. There must have been 20 or 30 parents and children at that particular session, and I don't get claustrophobic, but I felt quite frustrated by the amount of people, and I took Harrison out. He wasn't calming down, so I went back in to get his bag to leave, and upon opening the door, a child nearly fell out of leaning on the door, nearly fell out backwards. So I was holding him up to keep him in at the same time as trying to shut the door, not realising that another child had got their finger right in the corner of the door, and as I closed, I almost caught their finger right in the corner of the door, and it was particularly upsetting. I've had a number of people that has since come to church a lot since. Adrian actually tells me that story because he was the one that stopped the boy from getting his finger caught in the door, and I didn't realise at the time I was in I wasn't in that headspace, and it's quite an emotional event for me. And I went home and I was particularly upset, and I couldn't particularly, I didn't want to go back. I almost didn't want to go back, but I think in typical, I've always been one of these people to try and face your fears. So I got that. One Sunday when I woke up, I just felt the need to sort of go back and try it out again, but for me and not for Harrison. So I turned to Lorna next to me and said, Lorna, I'd like to go today, but can you come with me? Can you take Harrison to the Sunday school, and I'll go into the main service? And that day I met David, who introduced me to you, Johnny, and obviously I then filled out the introduction form, and since then it's felt very comfortable coming every single week. Harrison loves going up to the front to take part in the activities and sing the songs. And in fact, I then took part. I did the Alpha course, the winter series, so starting September last year. And in fact, I'm going to look to get confirmed this year in November. And just the number of people that we've met, come into contact with, has just been fantastic. I never realised that there'd be such a community of people very similar to myself, first-time parents, young children, moving out from London to get somewhere a little bit bigger. So it's fascinating to have really come into touch with people through church and not through my natural way of just talking to anybody in the streets. So it's been, it's been fulfilling. It's been something I've taken a lot of confidence in, building that network and community spirit. So I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. That's brilliant. But what you've said so far has given me no clues as to why you would be the person behind a Doorstep Loaf, blessing the church community in such a wonderful way. So what is this about a Doorstep Loaf?
Lorna would have you believe differently. All I ever talk about is food. I've always been a passionate cook. Going back to my days when I was at university, I filled time. I earned pocket money or alcohol money or whatever you want to call it back then through working in pubs and restaurants. So I'm very confident working in the kitchen. I enjoy food, but I've never really had the time to focus on the more technical, or what I thought was a technical thing in baking, and it's really not. I thought, why not give it a go? It's something I've always wanted to do. My 40th birthday, I had some money from my parents that they put to a side. So I said to them, well, I'd like to spend it on a blender. Let me do that in my time off whilst I'm in furloughed. I've got a little bit more time. So I thought I'd give it a go. And it was a complete disaster to start with. If it wasn't for my gung-ho approach of trying again, and just I wouldn't be at this stage. My very first effort, I cooked in a pan, a cast iron pan, and it didn't raise at all. I mean, it started 2 inches high, and when it came out, it was actually less than 2 inches. And it looked awful. It looked like a large biscuit. It was hilarious. It tasted fine, as I subsequently realised and learned. Yeast only helps it rise, but there is a process to go through to do that. And so really through researching the internet and following lots of different videos that you can find online nowadays, I've learnt the process. And I can't get over how simple it is baking bread. But probably more importantly is how rewarding it's been, both from baking the bread, but coming up with the idea and delivering it out to people, to then having such lovely sort of notes and words of encouragement and thanks back. I mean, it was never, I think it was a selfish thing I did to start with, to fill some time and to learn a skill for myself. But I think possibly just to, when I saw the neighbours next door that were elderly and were struggling to get out, and quite frankly, I didn't want them to go out. So I thought by giving them some bread might help them just to stay in and stay safe, as we're all being told to do. So that was the idea. And by delivering it to people's doorsteps, then I wouldn't come into contact with people. And it's just gone off from there, really. So I think we're up to 81 loaves. I've got another 8 that I baked this morning. So there'll be more going out tomorrow morning.
That's amazing. And as somebody who's done I would say, very complex job of baking bread, it's very simple, I don't know. I've been conning Kathy all these years. No, I've been baking bread for many, many years. And certainly having tasted your delicious loaves, you've left me a long way behind. And it's really impressive to see how you've taken to it and all your creativity, and it's been fantastic. And I know just how many people have been blessed by that. So thank you so much for blessing so many in the community and helping people to feel that they belong just because they've received a loaf of bread that you've made. So thank you very much for all that you've done.
No, you're more than welcome, Johnny. And as probably just a little bit of word, if people are interested in trying to bake, attempting it, doing what I did drastically wrong in the first place, I'm more than happy to guide people through the process. It literally takes, you can do it in 20 minutes to start with, and then you just leave it. And I've got all the equipment and ingredients. So if people had thought of giving it a go, but for whatever reason are put off, then happy, please get in touch. Happy to talk you through it. Or, we can be disastrous together and give things a go. It's all a bit of trial and error. That's the best way to look at it.
Brilliant. Great. Aaron Mozley, the man behind the Doorstep Loaf. Thank you very much indeed.